When you configure Google Analytics 4 and start collecting data, events coming from your device will be displayed in reports. And if you're working in a company with more employees, their data will be also counted. As a result, all of this makes your reports less accurate, but don't worry, because in this video, I will show you how to exclude internal traffic in Google Analytics 4. Hey, my name is Julius and welcome to Analytics Mania YouTube channel, where you can learn Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics. And if you want to stay up to date with Google Analytics 4, consider subscribing to this channel. To keep your data more accurate, you have to filter out your own traffic. And I'm not talking about your own device. I'm also talking about all the employees and their devices in your company, or maybe your client's company. In this video, I wanted to share how can you exclude internal traffic in Google Analytics 4. However, keep in mind that GA4 is currently under heavy development. Therefore, you might notice some changes in your interface compared to my video. So if that actually happens, check the description of this video. There is a blog post that might be updated, or maybe I will include some additional updated resources. All right, so let's dive in. In this video, I will show you one way how to exclude internal traffic. And if this method is not good enough for you, then check the description of this video where I have this blog post, and in it you will find some additional tips and ways how to exclude internal traffic. Compared to Universal Analytics, there are more steps required in Google Analytics 4 in order to exclude that traffic. So first of all, you should go to the admin of your Google Analytics, and then we will define the internal IP addresses. Once you do that, Google Analytics 4 will be able to distinguish your own traffic from all the other traffic, and then Google Analytics 4 will add an additional parameter which is called traffic type, and its value is internal. And by seeing this value, Google Analytics will be able to understand that this is internal traffic. So you should go to the admin of your Google Analytics 4 property. Then in the property column, you should go to data streams and then select the website data stream. Click it, then scroll down, and here you will see more tagging settings. Click it, then select define internal traffic. Click it right here. And here we have to enter some rules which Google Analytics 4 will understand and will treat this traffic as an internal traffic. Or in other words, coming from you or your employees. So click create. And as of the moment of recording this video, it is currently possible only to define the internal traffic based on IP addresses. Hopefully this will be improved in the future. So here you should enter your IP address. And if you don't know what your address is, you can click on this link and then you will get your IP address. You should copy it and then paste it right here. Then you can leave this parameter as it is. And then you should enter here the name for the rule. This is purely for internal use. So you can enter it something like this. If you're working with a larger business and that business has several, let's say, headquarters, then you can create rules for each headquarter and set different values here. For example, headquarters 1, maybe headquarters 2. And if you want to learn more about this part, I will post a link to the official Google Analytics documentation where you can read more about this. But for sake of demonstration, let's keep it as it is right here. If you want to exclude more IP addresses, you can add conditions here. Also, you can enter things like ranges right here. But for this example, I will remove that additional condition and leave only one here. Then click create. So once you configure the internal traffic, Google Analytics 4 will be adding an additional parameter, which is called traffic type, to all the hits that are coming from my IP address. In fact, I can test it right here. I can go to the debug view. If you don't know how to enable and start seeing data in the debug view, I will post a link to another tutorial below this video. And here I see myself in the debug view. If I click on any event right here, I can find the parameter traffic type and its value is internal. This is the same value that I configured in the internal traffic rule about a minute ago. But that is not enough. Even though that traffic type parameter is now added to all the hits coming from my IP address, those hits will still be visible in regular reports. This is happening because we still haven't activated the internal traffic filter. So let's go to the admin of Google Analytics 4 and configure this as well. Let's go to the admin of GA4, then go to data settings and data filters. Here you will find one predefined filter that was already automatically created when you created your own property. However, its current state is testing. So this means that the data with the internal traffic type is still not excluded. So if you want to start excluding your data from your reports, you should activate it by clicking here. But once you activate the internal traffic filter, it introduces a new problem. What happens is that you will not be able to see yourself and your hits in GA4 debug view from this moment. which is quite inconvenient because you want to see yourself in the debug view, but you want to exclude your data from the actual real-time or some other regular reports. So when I faced this issue, I tried to use another type of filters in Google Analytics 4, which is developer filter. Now, developer filter excludes all the hits from Google Analytics 4 reports except those that contain the debug mode or debug event parameter. And in that case, those events are still excluded from regular reports, but they become visible in the debug view. So I tried to create and activate this filter, but the problem still persisted. But don't worry, I have a fix for that. And for that fix to work, we still have to create a developer filter. So once again, let's go to the admin of Google Analytics 4, data settings, data filters, and now we are going to create a new filter. Click create filter, then choose developer traffic. Here you can enter some name, for example, developer traffic. Then we keep this operation as exclude. And here we make this trigger active. And then I click create. So now I have created two filters. One is for internal traffic and one is for developer traffic. So even though I have the developer filter enabled, it is still overshadowed by the activated internal traffic filter. So as long as I'm sending hits from my device and they contain the traffic type internal, this filter will be activated. It will exclude all the hits, including the debug view, and this filter will never have a chance to properly show data only in the debug view. So what we are going to do is a workaround where we are going to use the lookup table variable. And in that variable, we will be checking the debug mode of Google Tag Manager. So if Google Tag Manager debug mode is enabled, then we will override the traffic type internal, and then we will temporarily disable this filter. But this will happen only for those employees who have enabled the preview mode of Google Tag Manager. And since this filter becomes deactivated, this filter kicks in. It will still be excluding your developer traffic. However, that traffic will become visible in the debug view of Google Analytics 4. So let's go to Google Tag Manager, variables, then scroll down to the user-defined variables section, click new, variable configuration, and then choose lookup table. Here we have to select the input variable, or in other words, which variable are we going to check in order to distinguish whether we should remove that traffic internal parameter or not. Or actually, we're not going to remove it. We're just going to change its value. So in the input variable field right here, click, and then you should be looking for a variable called debug mode. This variable is a built-in variable in Google Tag Manager. However, by default, it is disabled. So if you cannot find the variable right here, it means that it is not yet enabled in your container. So you should close this variable, then go to the built-in variables, click configure, and then enable the debug mode right here. Then let's create the lookup table variable once again, click new, variable configuration, and then click lookup table, then select debug mode, and then we are going to add two rows. In one row, we are going to define what should happen if the debug mode is in fact enabled. And in this case, I'm talking about the GTM debug and preview mode. So let's enter true. And in other row, let's enter what we are going to do if its value is false. So if the debug mode variable's value is true, then we are going to change the value of the traffic type parameter, and we will set its value from internal to developer. Or you can enter something else like dev, developer, programmer, or something else. Just make sure that you don't enter the word internal here. Then if the debug mode variable returns false, this means that the preview mode of Google Tag Manager is not currently used. Therefore, we want this variable to return nothing, or in other words, we will let Google Analytics 4 to continue sending that regular internal value. Therefore, we should enter something like undefined here. However, if we enter the word undefined like this will not work, because in this case, we will actually be sending the word undefined. And in Google Tag Manager, there is a different way. How can we tell that we don't want to send any value? Not the word undefined, but actually like no value. And that is possible with a variable called undefined variable. So let's delete that word, then click on this variable button, then click plus icon here, variable configuration, and then choose undefined variable. There are no configurations here, so just enter the word undefined in the title, but I just like it to use this way. So click save, and then let's name this variable. So it can be something like lookup, then the name of the input variable, and then we can enter some additional descriptions such as developer or undefined. Click save. Now we have to go to tags, open your existing Google Analytics 4 configuration tag, and then in that tag, we have to add an additional field, and the name of this field should be traffic_type, exactly as I enter it right here. and then the value should be our lookup table. So click this button and then keep looking for the lookup table variable. Now let's save this tag and let's test whether everything is working properly. So click preview button and then let's check what is happening. So in the preview mode of Google Tag Manager, you can click on your Google Analytics 4 measurement ID. Here you will see the page view, and if you click it, you will see that right now we sent this information. However, this TT parameter, which stands for traffic type, currently includes not the word internal, but instead its value is developer. So if we go to the debug view Google Analytics 4, you will start seeing your events once again. And for example, if I click on this page view and go to traffic type, you will see that its value is developer right now. If you don't see your developer traffic coming right away, then you should be patient because, for example, in my case, I had to wait for a minute or two. Also, I had to make several page views just to send the data because it looks like GA needs some additional time in order to properly process this and switch between the filters. I mean, I don't know how exactly this works, but in my case, waiting a bit actually helped. Also, speaking of that traffic type parameter and its value developer, we can check the same thing in the developer tools of the browser. So if I go to the website, then click on 3 dots, then more tools and developer tools, and then go to the network tab right here and enter google-analytics.com and then refresh the page, this will filter down to the requests that were sent to Google Analytics 4. And actually it's quite easy to distinguish the GA4 request from the Universal Analytics because the status of GA4 requests usually are 204. So you can click it here, then scroll down to the query string parameters, and here you should find the TT parameter. Here it is. This stands for traffic type and its value is developer. So since this is sent instead of the word internal, that internal traffic filter is temporarily disabled because the internal traffic filter excludes only those hits that contain the value internal. And in our case, we are sending temporarily the value developer. But if I exit Google Tag Manager's preview and debug mode by clicking this X right here, then if I submit a new Google Tag Manager container version, so this means that all my changes will go live, and then I open the developer tools and refresh the page, then I will see that page view request sent right here. And if I click it, you will see that the value of the TT parameter right here is now internal. Because we are no longer in the preview and debug mode of Google Tag Manager, therefore our lookup table returns the value undefined, or in other words, that undefined does not interfere with the automatic internal traffic detection by Google Analytics 4. So this is the result that you should expect. And right now, if I go to Google Analytics debug view, you will not see any recent events coming from me right here, because right now my hits are sent with the traffic type internal, and also I will not be able to see myself in other reports, including real time. So this is how you can exclude your internal traffic in Google Analytics 4, but that is based on the IP address. Now, if you're working with a larger company and many IP addresses are involved, then you might be interested in other ways how can you exclude your internal traffic. And if you want to learn more about them, I will post a link to this blog post below the video where you can learn more about some alternatives. And that is how you can exclude internal traffic in Google Analytics 4. I really hope that in the future, filters will be more powerful in GA4, because for example, in Universal Analytics, they are pretty great. And if you are watching this video when the filters are already more powerful, then check the description of this video. Maybe I have included some additional tips and updated resources as well. If you found this video useful, hit the thumbs up button below the video because it helps me continue working on this channel. Also, if you want to learn more about Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics 4, consider subscribing to this channel. My name is Julius, this is Analytics Mania, and I'll see you in the next video.